All right, come. You might as well come this way. Yeah, we'll go through this way. All right. So this is where I live. Grew up in this garden, and then this is HQ. Come in here. This is the archery abode.
Growing up wasn't very easy because I never lived in the ghetto. Right? I'm not an urban person per se. In the United States, we know racism is very rampant. It's about as American as apple pie, and so when you're growing up in these neighborhoods, sometimes I was like the only black guy. And that being the case, you can imagine I had a lot of fights. I had to kick their butts. Sometimes I kicked it, sometimes I got kicked, you know.
There's my arrow collection, bows, targets, net.
I've been training Jiu-Jitsu now, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for over 12 years, all with my instructor Wilson Jr. from Castle Gracie, London, one of the premier clubs in the UK. Started about 2003, around that end time, towards the end of my university days. I was really looking for a realistic martial art.
When I was in uni, there was a lot of hype around at that time about black consciousness. And you know, everybody's talking about going back to Egypt and the Dogon people in West Africa and the plights of medicine and the understanding of the universe and so on and so forth. And at that time I was taking a Black American Studies course. And you can't talk about, we were talking about Africa, but you can't talk about Africa without talking about Islam. So my desire to look into Islam became a little more heightened. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, and when I closed that up, I decided I wanted to be a Muslim. And there was no question about what it was I wanted to do.
Archery was first kind of when I was much younger, it was more like a hobby. So my mum put me on a holiday course to get me out of the house and keep me busy. But then I took it more seriously when I was more at university. Also start riding at the same time, separately, so that we could then merge it together and start horseback archery. I've been able to compete in some horse archery competitions around the world, and I thought to give people more access, you need to bring the sport to them. So I invested in some basic equipment and targets and bows and stuff, so that then I could make it mobile. So it was a mobile archery service.
For me, growing up, martial arts, was something really big. My favorite was the 5 deadly venoms. You can't tell me that you're a kung fu connoisseur and not know the 5 deadly venoms. I'm sorry. You just not, don't talk to me about Wu-Tang and all that. If you don't know the 5 deadly venoms, we can't even talk.
The turnstile is immensely strong and immune to nearly any weapon. When it's properly used, it's almost invincible.
But it was Sahel, Sheikh Noah's wife. She said to me one time, she said, if you're looking not to come to study for some pursuit in the dunya, when Allah has opened the door for you to study something of His religion, just know that this opportunity may never present itself again. And because you're choosing dunya over deen, that everything in your life is going to fail. You hear something like that, coming from people you respect. It was kind of heavy.
The most blessed thing about having him as our teacher, Nisar doesn't hold back. He teaches you everything that he learns, he will teach you. And he won't, some people get afraid that, this guy is going to surpass me. He doesn't care about that, that's not in him. And the sincerity of the teacher, mashallah, passes over onto the students. So you find the students with good behaviour. And it's not just with us in the masjid, but it's also where he trains the regular Carlton Gracie boys in Farnborough.
Upon you returning to the United States in 2003, I took up learning a Japanese swordsmanship course called Shinkindo. At the same time I was doing Shinkindo, I started studying also ninjutsu with the brother who was a student of this brother named Ali Kareem, or Kareem Ali, who I think was also a student of Sensei Ronald Duncan, who is questionably known as one of the first American ninjas, if you will. And I wound up finding another art called Sanukas. And Snookus is a art that was created by Grandmaster Moses Powell. May Allah be pleased with him. He was also a Muslim.
Yeah, he's even taller. Watch him grow. Oh, yeah. This hurts. Then hang your fist to the side. That noise you hear is real. The real technique. Now from here, I would come up, pushing, and hit. Take him out.
This man, he was known doing the one-finger handstand, right? And this guy was huge. He was massive. And he was very humble, very calm. And you'll find that a lot of masters are African-American, like that lived in New York. Yeah, these kind of things don't get recorded in history. You know, we don't hear about them except, you know, through street legends. And Grandmaster Moses Powell taught his two godsons, one of which is named Chris Allen, and that's who I was blessed to meet in Atlanta. And I started studying Snookus with him.
Oftentimes people are in a sort of fantasy world about what they think martial arts is. And Jiu-Jitsu, like boxing, like judo, like wrestling, is one of those real arts, I'd say.
You know, when you look at some of the greatest masters of Japanese swordsmanship, they'll tell you that it's all a mindset. It's all a mindset. You can't be afraid, for instance, to be cut. You can't be afraid to get hit. You can't be afraid of what the other person is going to do to you. You have to be focused as to what you're going to do to them.
He pushes back to get his base. That's when I lift with both legs. And I come in with the arm bar here. These type of art forms, you know, you could even liken Quran. If we just take the example of the Quran, and you learn Quran, you could ask any hafiz, you know, okay, you've memorized it, fine. What do you do then? You know, muraja'ah, you have constant renewal. You have to engage with the Book of Allah. You have to engage with it constantly, every single day. You know, it will leave you. It will leave you at some point if you don't engage it. It's not much like the art forms, you know, like the Jiu-Jitsu, martial arts. You must engage it continually throughout your life to master it.
When you're worried about something, take to your bow means go and do some archery, because there's relief in there, there's relaxation, and you know, we want to also get our youth into good constructive ways of using their time. There's obviously, you know, a lot of distractions out there, so archery is a very good channel.
Nobody wants to perfect with their craft. This is what we're talking about, the perfection of craft. And it may come, it might, so if Allah so wills. But for the rest of us, we can't count on that. We have to look for the work. And the work that we do is looking for Allah, and that's our basis.
I think a lot of people, a lot of Muslims almost fantasize and think that, you know, they understand what it means to not only purify their character, but embark on these type of arts. But when you're immersed in it, it's very difficult. Physically, mentally, spiritually, it's a trial. Not only for the students, but also for those instructing as well.
And so for me, you know, I really equate a lot of things from martial arts to our Islam, and Islam to the martial arts. And that means that there has to be perspective, that means there has to be discipline, that means there has to be some attitude of perfection. It means that we have to look at it from the point of view of the art. So how do we look at it psychologically? How do we look at it metaphysically? How do we look at it philosophically? How do we look at it, you know, physically, internally? Not just the external, but even internal. Because really, if the internal is not good, the external is going to be jacked up.
We get the physical training, and then in those classes we get the spiritual training, which is probably more so important than the physical. You know, there should be a balance, but you know, when we die, the body stays here, the spirit is the one that goes. So that spiritual training is very important.
From what I can see as a retreat, as a step away from our normal life in the UK, particularly. I don't know around the world what it's like, but in the UK it's very, very unique. You immerse yourself in the arts, the Sunnah arts, the practice of the Prophet ﷺ, his companions, the great predecessors, you know. And many, many people forget that. They really don't think about what the traditional arts were. Yes, they evolved, yes, they changed, and you could argue that perhaps, you know, they didn't have gis in those days. the essence with which you must enter this retreat is really thinking about your character, your conduct, how you can change that through the activities that you do. The perfecting of these activities is almost the perfecting of your character. And that's one of the things that I think, I hope, inshallah, we can impart when we go on that retreat.
So all of this is being lost, you know, learning these things in archery, because it teaches precision, it teaches timing, it teaches hand-eye coordination, it teaches connection with self, right? Even in the Jiu-Jitsu, it helps you understand your terrain, right? In any martial art, it teaches you terrain. You got to understand where you are, understanding, being aware. That's the point. To be aware of self, to be aware of environment, be aware and be connected. It's something we've lost. It's something we've lost, and Futuwwa becomes very, very, very important because of the fact that we as men and women as well have lost cultivation. And I'm glad that, you know, this year Allah has blessed me to be finally a part of this, you know, because as I speak, I'm in need of cultivation. So, you know, this also opens the door for me to become broadened in my understanding and learn something that will help me to enhance the perspectives that I already possess.